Well, they can even plant questions at short notice. In the last half hour, let us be clear. Let us be clear about what has happened. In the last half hour, Sir James Crosby, the man who ran HBOS and who the Prime Minister singled out to regulate our banks and to advise our government, has resigned over allegations that he sacked the whistleblower who knew that his bank was taking unacceptable risks. Does the Prime Minister accept that it was a serious error of judgment on his part to appoint him in the first place?
Mr. Speaker, the allegations that were brought before the Treasury Select Committee were investigated by the independent KPMG in 2005. The allegations made by Mr. Moores were found not to be substantiated. That was an independent review that was done by KPMG and reported to the Financial Services Authority. However, it is right that when serious allegations are made, they are properly investigated. No doubt the Treasury Select Committee will want to look at them. No doubt the Conservative Party will want to wait to see how that investigation takes place. And Mr. Speaker, the Walker Committee will look at every aspect of banking regulation, which we know can be improved. The unfortunate thing is, every time we've called for more regulation, the Conservative Party's called for less.
The Prime Minister talks about the KPMG investigation, but it was after that investigation this bank virtually went bust. Taxpayers have poured billions of pounds into this bank. And not only was Sir James Crosby appointed as one of the top regulators in the country, and I have to say, knighted by the Prime Minister for his services, the Prime Minister has been relying on him for economic advice. Sir James Crosby was the man who was going to sort out the mortgage market. So will the Prime Minister confirm that, as well as standing down from the Financial Services Authority, Sir James Crosby is no longer one of his advisers? Is that the case?
Sir James Crosby did 2 reports, one for the Chancellor on mortgages and one for me when I was Chancellor on security issues. He has completed these reports. He is no longer an economic adviser of the government, and has only been so in the context of doing 2 reports. I think, if I may say so, we are facing very big issues in the economy at the moment. And I think the way the Conservative Party want to trivialise them does no merit to the Conservative Party.
There is nothing trivial about asking the Prime Minister about the man he appointed to regulate the banks. Why can't the Prime Minister just admit for once that he made an error of judgment? Isn't this a big part of the Prime Minister's problem? I mean, Sir James Crosby's had the decency to resign. Why can't the Prime Minister have the decency to admit he got something wrong? Isn't this part of the No apology about boom and bust. No apology about Britain being better prepared. Even the bankers have apologised. When is the Prime Minister going to? Won't you just admit, one more time, wasn't it a misjudgment to appoint him to all those roles?
I told the Leader of the Opposition the term "you" is not permissible and he shouldn't use it. Order, be quiet. I've said this time and time again and I won't say it again. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday he had the 4 leaders of the 2 major banks that were brought to the point of collapse apologising for what they've done. If we had not stepped in to save the banks, I would have had to apologise for not taking the action that was necessary. But we took the right action. And I just got to ask him, on all the big decisions over the last year, on the judgment that he took on them. On Northern Rock, we nationalised a year ago. They opposed the measure we took. On the fiscal stimulus, where every other country in the world is acting, he opposed the measures we took. On the whole range of measures that we are taking to deal with the fiscal stimulus that is necessary, including raising the pension and raising child benefit, they are opposing what we do. I think he has got to answer to the House himself for what he has got wrong.
I'll tell him about the judgments. I'll tell him about the judgments we made. Voting against VAT, that was the right judgment. Supporting a national loan guarantee scheme, that was the right judgment. Let's have a look. The Prime Minister says these banks collapsing was nothing to do with him. Let's look at the judgments he made when he was Chancellor. Who gave us the biggest budget deficit in the developed world? He did. Yeah. Who left us the most indebted, personally indebted country in the world? He did. Who set up the regulatory system? Who set up the regulatory system that has so failed? He did. Let's have a look. Let us have a look at another of the Prime Minister's judgments. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor, have told us repeatedly that the economy will start to grow again at the beginning of July this year. The Schools Secretary, the man who was the Prime Minister's chief economic advisor at the Treasury for so many years, says, and I quote, "We are heading for the worst recession in 100 years." So does the Prime Minister agree with his Schools Secretary?
Well, first of all, let's look at the judgments that he mentioned. First of all, on VAT, the Governor of the Bank of England, the Institute of Fiscal Studies, have just said it was the right decision to make. There is more money in people's pockets as a result of it. It's only the Conservative Party that have always put up VAT that they believe that the answer can never be to reduce VAT. And let's look at what we've done for business. We have introduced a loan guarantee scheme that is £1 billion. We've introduced a Bank of England facility that will start on Friday that is £50 billion. 56,000 companies have already benefited from the schemes that we have brought in. If we had taken the advice of the Conservative Party, no money would have been used. As Barack Obama said only yesterday, doing nothing is not an option.
Well, let's have a little look at who backs the Prime Minister's judgment on VAT. The Dutch say it's not a very wise thing to do. The Germans say the debt will take... These are his friends, by the way. I'm not getting on to his enemies. The Germans say the debt will take a generation to pay off. And the French president says, and I quote, the Prime Minister is ruining the economy.
The honourable members shouldn't shout down the leader of the opposition. It's not allowed. It's not allowed. Well, Ms. Keeley, you're usually very quiet, and you shouldn't. I don't think you should push your luck.
They should listen to the French president because this is what he says. He said, the Prime Minister is, and I quote, ruining the British economy, and he won't be repeating Gordon Brown's mistakes. What mistakes was he referring to?
Mr. Speaker, the one pro-European he didn't mention who supported the VAT rise is the shadow Chancellor, the businessman. Now, I think it's remarkable that you have... I really think we've got to look at this. It is remarkable that at the point where we need injection of resources most into the economy, that the Conservative Party is setting its face against ordinary families in this country having £20 more a month in their pockets. The people of this country will remember they opposed the VAT cut, they opposed the rise in pensions, they opposed the rise in child benefit, they opposed the extra billions that we are spending on public investment, and they did so in circumstances where they know that we have one of the lowest public debts of major countries in the world, not one of the highest.
The Prime Minister just cannot get his facts right. The fact is, we have the biggest budget deficit of any country outside Egypt, Pakistan and Hungary, and two of them are already in the IMF. Let's deal with a few more facts he just gave us. My right honourable friend, the member for Rushcliffe, voted against the VAT cut in this House. The Prime Minister never gets his facts right. He told us the other day he was like Titian, aged 90. The fact is, Titian died at 86. What we can see in the government's response to this recession, they've appointed the wrong people, they've made the wrong decisions, they can't give us a straight answer about the mess we're in, they never apologise for anything. Now everyone can see the price that's being paid by thousands of businesses going bust and people being made unemployed up and down our country. Isn't it clear that incompetence plus arrogance equals 2 million unemployed?
Mr. Speaker, what did the Leader of the Opposition say to the Conservative Party? Conference. Everybody knows that businesses need deregulation. Who is standing in the way? The great regulator, Gordon Brown. He then went on to say we had to deregulate the wealth creators. Now, at this point, when he's now calling for more regulation, perhaps he would be honest enough to admit that he was calling for the last few years for total deregulation in many of the systems in this country. And as far as judgment is concerned, let me just say, His judgment on Northern Rock was to let it collapse. His judgment on regulation is to deregulate as much as possible. His judgment on the fiscal stimulus is doing nothing. In the decisions he's made on the global financial crisis, they have been wrong, wrong and wrong every single time.
Michael Clapham. Order. Michael Clapham.
Thank you.